Alright, this is your guy again here, Mr. Juma, aka Juma the Developer. Today we're gonna talk about understanding CSS. You love art, playing with colors, animations, transitions, then this is the right thing for you, my G. Our topic outline will be 1. Introduction. What is CSS? Why CSS? And how are we going to add it in our web application? How are we going to use this CSS to style our web page? 2. Selectors. How to select the HTML tags to add the styles for. You remember the HTML tags we talked about? If not, kindly check out my previous video for better understanding of HTML basics. 3. We're gonna talk about layout, the arrangements and layering of elements in a website or a web application. And lastly will be a closing remarks and a vote of thanks to you, my G. CSS introduction. What is CSS? CSS is a cascading style sheet. So it's a sheet that we are going to use to give the visitors of our applications an appealing and eye-catching feelings. That is CSS, a cascading style sheet. A style sheet that we are going to use to give the visitors of our applications an appealing and eye-catching feeling. Then why CSS? CSS allows us to specify how to present or render the document info stored in the HTML. Remember, HTML was just a skeleton. Now we need to give our skeleton a color and maybe a beard. Kandevu, okay? Thanks to CSS, we can control all the aspects of the visualization and some other features. Be it colors, maybe for content, for background, for borders, margins, either interior margin or exterior margins, the positioning, where to put it, okay, sizes and behaviors on mouse over. Now this behavior is that when you bring a mouse on top of, let's say, a button, then some characteristics of colors or behavior is seen. So ukichukua mouse pointer upeleke kwa, maybe you are on a website, let's say Facebook, and then you bring it on a button and then there's this animation thing ama kakala ikicheza, so that is what is called a behavior on mouse overing, okay? Now, how do we start? How do we add this guy now? We love to play with colors. Now we want to put some colors in our site. How do we add this guy? Tuta add aje CSS. There are 4 ways to add CSS rules to your website. 1. Inserting the code inside a style tag. So we have a style tag here, as you can see, a style, opening style tag. Inside that style tag we have a element tag of P, and then opening curly braces we have color blue, and then a closing style tag. So this style tag is usually placed inside the head tag. So inside your head tag, I know you will talk about this, so kindly, if you don't know about these tags, kindly go and watch my videos, kindly. Number 2, how do we add CSS rules? Number 2 will be referencing an external CSS file. So here we need an external. So this link href link, we have the link, and then this is a type of the unpaired tag. You remember kina single? Nice one. So link href equals style.css. So you need to have an external, a separate file in your folder, but that file is saved with a .css extension. So it can be style.css, that href can be style.css, it can be just text.css. So the important thing there is that extension .css, and then followed by the rel, which equals to style sheet. Don't worry, don't be on a pressure, guys. We're gonna talk, we're gonna practice on this. Number 3, ways to add CSS rules using the attribute style on a tag. How about this? So we have a p tag, maybe an example here, we have a p tag, as you can see, and then we have style equals color full colon, blue, and then semicolon, then margin, a full colon, and then 10 pixel. So here we have a p tag. It can be a p tag, it can be a div tag, it can be an a tag, so long as the attribute you place is style equals and then opening quote, and then you follow with the styles. And lastly is using JavaScript. We will see this one later, so don't worry, we're gonna have a video on that JavaScript. Now let's see a CSS example. We have a star there, don't worry about it. We have an asterisk, and then opening curly brace, we have color blue, we have a comment, margin 10 pixels, so pixel is a short form of pixels, and then we have font 14 pixel Tahoma. What is the meaning of this? What will this code do? So this will change all the tags in my web. Star meaning all, to look blue with font Tahoma. So that Tahoma is like a font type, let's say font family actually. So font family Tahoma, it can be sans serif, Poppins, okay, with size 14 pixel and leaving a margin of 10 pixel around. So that's just an example of a CSS code. A CSS file saved with .css could have something like this. So let's check some mostly common CSS fields used and an example. As you can see here is a list of the most common CSS fields and an example. So we have color, hashtag FF000. This is an hexadecimal code, okay? Those who know hexadecimal, so you can understand FF, what's the meaning of FF code. And then we have red, we have RGBA, that is red, green, blue, and the opacity. So those are different ways to specify colors. You can just give a color name, okay, like just black, blue, red, you understand? Nice. You can also give the hex code. You can also Google, just convert your normal English color name to hex code. It's very simple. You can also use the standard colors code, okay, the RGBA, maximum being 255. So red, comma, green, comma, blue, comma, and then 1.0, which is the opacity, meaning 100% opacity. Don't worry. We have background color of red, just an example, background color red. So the background color is a CSS field. We have background image of URL file.png. So this is when you want to add an image as a background to your web application, okay, you're gonna use the background image to that parent tag. We have font 18 pixel Tahoma. So you can also break this down to be font size 18 pixel and then another field to be font family of Tahoma. Border 2 pixel solid black. Border top, border radius, if you want to remove the corners and make them more round, you use the border radius. Margin 10 pixel, distance from the border to the outer elements. The padding, that's the distance from the border to the inner elements. And then the width, you can use percentage, you can use pixel, you can use the empha, okay, the emphasis. So there's many different ways to specify the distances, okay. Height, text align center, it can be text align left, justify right. We have box shadow, okay, the horizontal 3 pixel, vertical, the blur of that shadow, the color of that shadow being black. Don't worry, my G. Cursor, pointer, display, inline block, overflow, hidden. Kindly give this thing a good screenshot for your future reference. CSS selectors. How are we going to select an HTML tag to give it a style? Before we do that, let's check this example. We have a div tag and an opening curly brace. Inside that curly braces, we have a field. So now when I say field or property, now you know what I'm saying, okay. So inside that div we have background color, full colon, red, and then semicolon. What do you think this CSS snippet will do? What do you think this will happen? What will the div be? So this means inside our body tag, we have a div tag. And remember, a div is a container or a rectangular area. So every div tag found in our web application will have a red background color, as you can see here. So body part, so the normal body, body of the web page of the web application will be white, the default one, and then that rectangular thing will be red in background. Now what about a body? This body, we have a body, and inside it we write background color black. What will happen? Nice, we will have a black background all over our web application. As you can see, we can specify more precise selectors beside the name of the tag, for instance by class or ID. So to specify a tag with a given class name, we use the dot notation. Okay, so we have a p.intro. Inside it we have color red. So this will affect only the tags p with class name intro. So all p tags in our HTML that have class intro, then they will be affected being of color red. There are several selectors we can use to narrow our rules to very specific tags of our website. That is called specificity. Yani we want a specific tag. We don't want to affect all the tags. Okay, so the main selectors we are going to see, one is tag name, just the name of the tag. It can be p, it can be div, it can be a tag. This will affect to all the p tags. You can use the dot, which affects to tags with that class. Okay, example the previous we've seen of the p.intro. So here we have p.highlight. So this will affect all p tags with the class highlight. You can use sharp characters or the hashtag when you're tunajua. So the hashtag, this specifies tags with that ID. So when you have a tag where the attribute is ID, then in your CSS you will put the hash symbol, p hashtag intro, and then you open the curly braces. Inside the curly braces you put the CSS field. It can be color, background color, can be text align, blah blah blah. So it will affect to the p tags with the ID intro, p hash intro. Another one we have is use of two dots. So this is behavior states. You remember what I said about behavior? Mouse on top of an element. So p and then full colon hover, and then you place your rules. And then lastly you can do by selecting, you can use the bracket, where we have bracket and then the attribute equals to value. So these tags with the attribute at with the value, input of type equals text, and then inside you place your properties. So you can also specify tags by its context. Example, how can we place a style to p tag of class intro and not affect the one which is outside the div tag? You have anything in your mind? Good. So we will write div hash main and then put a space p.intro, just by separating the selectors by a space. So we will use hash main and then .intro in order to affect the p tag that is of class intro that is inside the tag div of ID main. So when you put class the way like that you've selected, and then you place a color red, then it means the p tag inside that container will be red, and then the p outside the div tag will be the normal, let's say black or white. Also, if you want to select only elements that are direct child of one element, use the greater sign or the greater symbol character. Example here we have is ul.menu, the greater symbol, and then li, and then we put our properties inside. So this means in our HTML code, somewhere we have a UL. We talked about UL. This is a menu. So we have a UL of class menu, and inside that UL we have LIs, the lists. We have the home, the about, the contact maybe. So if we want to give colors to the LIs, then we use the greater sign symbol. Finally, in selectors, if you want to use the same CSS actions to several selectors, you can use the comma characters by giving them same attributes, same characteristics. So we use the comma to separate the elements. We want them to have same attributes or characteristics, like to have color of blue. So example, we have a div and then comma, a p tag, and then inside that we have some properties, maybe color blue. So this means all the elements inside this div tag will have color blue, and this p tag also will have color blue. Understood? CSS layout. It is important to understand how the browser arranges the elements on the screen. And also, it is important to note that by default, any width and height specified to an element will not take into account its margin. So a div with width 100 pixel and margin, let's say 10 pixel, will measure 120 pixels on the screen, not 100. This could be a problem breaking your layout, right? So you can change this behavior, changing the box model of the element so the width uses the outermost border, as you can see on the images. So we'll just place a code div, let's say it's a rectangular area, and then inside those properties we add box sizing border. You can say border or border box. Okay, so if you place a margin, so as you can see we have margins. Okay, we have the border, we have the padding and the content. So padding is inside and margin is outside the border. Well, now one of the hottest part of CSS is constructing the layout of your website. Constructing the layout of your website, the structure inside the window. You know that by default, HTML tends to put everything in one column, which is not ideal. All the elements are arranged just in one column. So there has been many proposals in CSS to address this issue. We can use tables, we can use fixed divs, we can use flex boxes, we can use a grid system. Okay, the way you see how is being arranged. We have the header, the nav on the left side, you have the content, you have the footer. So that is layering. Now because as you can see, because most sites are structured in a grid, I recommend to use the CSS grid system. Also we can also use the flex box system. Okay, you see how it's wonderful. Instead of being on one column, is being arranged in at least in an orderly way, right? So if I could give a sample code of placing a grid, then as you can see we have an code here, sample code. We have the HTML itself, where we have a div of class, and remember these divs are always inside the body tag. Mark me on that. So we have div class equals grid container. So this means this div has a class of grid container. Okay, so this is important because we are going to use it on our CSS later. And then we have div class equals grid item 1, and then we have another div also again of class grid item 2. Now we come to a separate file, the CSS now. So .grid container. Why are we using dot? Because this is selecting that specific tag with the class name grid container. So .grid container, and then we open our curly brace, display grid template rows, grid template column. Don't worry about that, we're gonna talk about on our practice later. So just know the layout, how we arrange. Okay, .grid item 1, we give it a background blue. So if you do this later, we're gonna create the previous pic I showed you. Well, congratulations, now you have the basics of the CSS. As a remarks, we've seen what is CSS, why CSS, and how to add it and use it. We've talked about selectors, how to add the styles to a specific tag or all tags. Lastly, we've seen layering, where we can use grid or flex. Don't worry, we are going to practice all of these in our playlist we talked about. I've got you, bro, don't worry. Well, thank you very much for this valuable time you've used. Hope you may understand a 1, 2, 3 things. So kindly don't forget to click that thing, you know that thing, aka the sub button, and don't forget to like my cheese.